I never thought I'd be the kind of man to make headlines, or whispers in the dark. My name's Mark Benson, 52. Born and raised in a town so small it barely shows up on maps, but I've lived in Cedar Falls, Iowa, for the last 20 years. I run a small hardware store on 4th Street, the kind with squeaky wooden floors and customers who still call you by name. I fix things, broken doors, leaky pipes, jammed locks. That's what I do. Or at least, that's who I was. I was married. 21 years. Her name's Carla. People used to say we were the solid ones. You know the type, barbecues in the backyard, matching lawn chairs, polite arguments about what to watch on Netflix. Nothing flashy. We had a routine. She taught 2nd grade at the local elementary. She loved sunflowers, black coffee, and crossword puzzles. I thought I knew her down to the freckles on her wrist. But I didn't know anything. It started small. The way she stopped waiting up for me when I closed up late. The way she'd tilt her phone away when I walked into the room. Nothing big. Not at first. You tell yourself stories to fill in the blanks. She's tired. Long day at school. Everyone pulls away a little after 20 years, right? But something inside me was listening, real quiet. A small voice that never said a word out loud, just watched. Then came the receipt. I found it wedged between the seats in her car when I borrowed it one Saturday. A hotel downtown. The kind that charges by the hour. And not cheap. $68. One night earlier that week, Tuesday. She told me she had a parent-teacher conference. I didn't say anything right away. I just folded the receipt and put it in my wallet, like it might dissolve if I didn't look at it too long. That night, I made her favorite, meatloaf with that spicy ketchup glaze, and she sat across from me like nothing was wrong. She asked me about the store. Told me the kids in her class were getting too smart for their own good. Smiled the same way she always did when she was lying. That's when I knew. Something in me cracked. Quietly. Not with rage. Not yet. Just understanding. I started watching her. Carefully. I knew what to look for. I was a handyman. I noticed things others missed. The way she always left the bedroom to take a call from her sister. The way her perfume changed on Thursdays. The slight rush in her voice when she said she had to stay late at school. One night, I followed her. It was a Wednesday. Said she had curriculum planning with the other teachers. She left around 6. I gave her 10 minutes, then slipped out, took the old Dodge truck down a few streets, keeping my lights off when I could. She wasn't headed to the school. She pulled into the parking lot of the same hotel from the receipt. Same hour. Same corner room, I would later learn. I didn't follow her inside. Not that time. I just sat across the street, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing holding me to this earth. I watched the lights come on in the window. I watched a man in a suit walk in 5 minutes later. I sat there for 2 hours. Then I went home and poured myself 3 fingers of whiskey. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the wall until the clock said it was morning. You know what they say about heartbreak? They say it feels like your chest caving in. For me, it was quieter. Like a light had gone out, and I was the only one who noticed the dark. But I wasn't going to let it in like that. I didn't want revenge, not at first. I just wanted to understand who he was, how long it had been going on, what made her turn on everything we built. So I started digging. Her laptop password? I knew it, our dog's name, Baxter. Her phone? I didn't try to unlock it. I just waited until she left it charging in the kitchen and took pictures of the screen when texts popped up. The name was saved as Julie. But Julie didn't text things like, "Can't wait to see you again, babe." Or, Last night was perfect. I ran the number through an online lookup. Prepaid. Registered to a burner account. She was careful. Smarter than I gave her credit for. But I was patient. I found out where he worked. A law office downtown. Fancy building with a glass elevator. His name was David Cole. Married. 2 kids. 1 golden retriever. Picture perfect life. Just like ours used to be. I watched him for weeks. Lunches at the same cafe. Left work every Friday at 5. Always wore the same watch. Rolex. Silver band. Bit too loose on his wrist. One time, he looked right at me at a stoplight. And smiled. That's when the idea took shape. Not a plan. Not yet. Just the edges of something cold and sharp forming in the back of my mind. I knew then, I wasn't going to talk to her about it. I wasn't going to confront him in a parking lot or write a sad little letter and walk away. I was going to burn everything down. But slowly. So they wouldn't see the smoke until it was too late. I didn't sleep much after that. People think revenge is a moment, some explosion of fury. It's not. Not if you want it to matter. It's more like building a house. Brick by brick. Quiet work. Careful measurements. And I had all the time in the world. First, I built the foundation. I started with Carla. My wife. The woman I trusted with every piece of me. I watched her closer than ever, but I didn't let on. I still brought her coffee in the morning. Kissed her on the cheek. Asked her how her day went. And when she smiled that practiced smile, I smiled right back. But inside, I was taking notes. I logged every late meeting, every suspicious phone call, every time she came home smelling like his cologne and not mine. I kept a little black notebook under the toolbox in the garage, one she'd never think to open. It was filled with times, dates, details. Then came the cameras. I installed 2. One in our living room, tucked inside the smoke detector. The other in the garage, pointed at the back door. Motion triggered. Night vision. High definition. Same stuff I used for security at the store. I caught her on video 3 times talking to him on speaker. Soft whispers. Little laughs. One time she said, "He still thinks I'm at that conference." I watched her sip wine on the couch we bought together while lying to my face through the walls. And David? The lawyer? He was sloppy in his own way. I paid a visit to the office building where he worked. Told the front desk I was there to inspect the sprinkler systems. Wore a cheap work shirt with a fake company logo. No one questioned me. I walked the halls, took pictures, noted security cams, badge readers. Even saw his office. Nameplate and everything. David T. Cole, partner. I watched him take a call behind frosted glass, his feet up on the desk. He laughed like he didn't have a secret in the world. Next, I started playing the part of the fool. At home, I acted more forgetful. A little slower. Like I wasn't paying attention. One time I asked her twice what time she'd be home. She rolled her eyes, said I was getting old. I laughed. Said maybe she was right. That was the first time she said something that really stuck with me. She said, "You're too predictable, Mark. You've been the same man since the day I met you." She said it like an insult, but I heard it for what it was. Permission. She thought I was blind. Harmless. Safe. That was her mistake. 3 weeks later, I planted the first seed. I made an anonymous call to the school district, posing as a concerned parent. Claimed Carla had been showing up late to class, distracted, possibly intoxicated. I knew it wouldn't get her fired, not yet, but it would rattle her. And it did. She came home early the next day, pale, hand shaking. Said they'd asked her to take a wellness day. I nodded. Said maybe she was working too hard. She didn't suspect a thing. Next came David's turn. I sent an envelope to his home. No return address. Inside, a printed photo of him and Carla kissing in the hotel parking lot. I'd snapped it from a distance with a long lens. I didn't include a note. I didn't have to. A week later, he moved out of his house. I saw the U-Haul myself. He didn't tell Carla, at least not right away. I know because she cried in the bathroom that night. Said it was just stress. She never cried for me like that. At this point, I had them both rattled. Off balance? But I wasn't done. Not nearly. I needed to get closer to David. So I hired someone. Name was Curtis. Big guy. Former client from the store. Needed cash, no questions asked. I paid him to, accidentally, bump into David in a parking garage and drop a fake wallet full of IDs, all with David's address on them, but not his name. It worked. David freaked. Thought he was being stalked. He filed a police report. Even called the firm's IT to check his emails. I watched it all unfold from the shadows, every thread slowly unraveling. And still I waited. I had one rule: no contact. Not yet. No messages. No confrontations. Let them think they were in control. Let them dig their own graves. And then, something unexpected happened. Carla came home one night with tears in her eyes and said, "I think someone's watching me." I nearly laughed. Instead, I took her in my arms, held her like I used to, and said, "It's okay, honey. You're safe with me." She believed me. That night, she fell asleep in my arms. And I stared at the ceiling for hours, planning the final phase. The part where I didn't just ruin them. I erased them. You'd be surprised what people keep under their beds. I'd been holding back. Up to that point, everything I'd done was quiet, calculated, measured sabotage. But now, with Carla paranoid and David crumbling, it was time to turn up the heat. I needed something final. Permanent. I wasn't just going to destroy their affair. I was going to bury it under rubble. So I took a few days off from the store. Told my assistant manager I needed time to reconnect with Carla. He gave me a pat on the shoulder and told me to fight for love. If only he knew. I spent that time combing through every part of our house she thought was hers. Drawers, boxes, computer folders. I wasn't looking for love letters. I was looking for leverage. And I found it. Tucked inside a manila envelope, beneath a stack of old school reports in her closet, was a copy of a lease. Not our house. A second place. An apartment. One she had signed 2 months earlier. It was in the city. Just far enough that I wouldn't stumble across it by accident. She never mentioned it. Not once. I drove out there that afternoon and waited in my truck. Sure enough, around 6, she pulled up. Alone. Keyed in the code like she'd done it 100 times. I watched her disappear behind the building's side door, like she didn't have a single regret in the world. I followed her in a few minutes later. Buzzed the intercom, waited for a tenant to open the lobby door. The apartment number on the lease matched the top floor. Number 3F. I didn't go up. I didn't need to. I just stood there, looking at the directory. 3F, Miss Carla Benson. She'd used her maiden name. I went back to my truck and sat for a while, watching the lights come on in her window. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just cheating. She was leaving. The apartment wasn't a secret love nest. It was a lifeboat. She was jumping ship. And she hadn't told me because she was waiting for something. Something to finalize. A deal. A decision. Or maybe just the right moment to twist the knife. That night, back at home, she kissed me goodnight and said she loved me. I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above us, and thought, You think you're planning your escape, but I'm planning your ending. Next day, I visited a friend. Name's Greg. He runs a junkyard outside town. Owes me a few favors. I helped him fix his roof last year when a storm tore it open. Greg's a quiet man, but he knows how to find things. I told him I needed a wrecked car. Something burned out. No questions asked. Paid in cash. He didn't blink. Took me around the back of the yard to a rusted-out Civic, torched from the inside. No plates. No engine. Just a shell. Perfect. I borrowed his trailer, loaded it up, and drove it to a spot I knew in the hills, an abandoned quarry where kids used to throw beer bottles and pretend to be rebels. No cameras. No hikers. Just silence. Then I made some calls. One to a locksmith I'd worked with before. I told him Carla lost her spare key set, and I needed a backup made from her old copies. Another to a print shop in Des Moines. I gave them David's name, birthday, and some legal paperwork I forged to look like medical records. Had them print out fake lab results that said David had tested positive for something serious. Something that would scare people. Put doubt in their minds. Finally, I called Carla's school and left a second anonymous tip. This time, it wasn't just about her showing up late. I said I'd seen her in a bar with a student's father, being very inappropriate. Said I was a concerned parent and didn't want to escalate, yet, by the end of that week, she was put on temporary leave. David, meanwhile, had been subpoenaed for a deposition related to a case I knew he'd been hiding evidence on. I slipped a USB drive into his office mail slot with fake files that would trigger an internal audit. They'd think he was tampering. He wasn't, of course, but it didn't matter. I wasn't giving them truth. I was giving them consequences. And then, on a cold Friday night in November, everything came together. I texted Carla from an anonymous number. Told her I was a lawyer. Said I had evidence that could ruin David. Meet me in person, I said. Alone. 9 p.m. address follows. I gave her the quarry. She replied in under 2 minutes. Who is this? But she showed up. I was parked behind a hill, engine off, lights off, watching her walk in with a flashlight and fear all over her face. No David. No one else. Just her. When she got to the burned-out car, she froze. I watched her read the note I'd left taped to the driver's side. This is what happens to secrets. She looked around, calling out into the dark, her voice shaking. Who's there? I didn't answer. I just took a picture from a distance. Her face. Her fear. The exact moment she realized everything was spiraling out of her control. That was the real beginning of the end. And I wasn't done yet. After the quarry, Carla changed. Not on the outside. No, she still wore her teacher card around her neck, still left decaf coffee rings on the kitchen counter, but behind her eyes? Something was broken. She flinched at shadows. Triple-checked the doors. I even caught her unplugging the landline. That Sunday, I made her pancakes. Blueberry. Her favorite. She barely touched them. That's when I knew. She didn't suspect me. Not yet. She thought it was David. Or maybe someone connected to him. But not me. Never boring, dependable, predictable Mark. And that was my biggest weapon. See, revenge doesn't come from rage. Rage is loud. Messy. Easy to trace. But devastation? That comes from silence. From knowing exactly where to press, and when to twist. The next week, I got a burner phone and created a new identity. Tom Wallace, private investigator. I sent Carla a message. You're not safe. He's lying to you. Meet me. Bring no one. I knew she wouldn't show. That wasn't the point. I needed her paranoid. That same day, I sent David a copy of the fake medical report I'd had printed, sealed in an envelope with no return address. Confidential, court-ordered release. 2 days later, his car was gone from his apartment lot. His firm scrubbed his name off the website by Friday. I even saw a local blog hinting that he was under investigation. I wasn't just breaking them apart. I was isolating them. And once they were alone, they started making mistakes. Carla called me at work one afternoon, crying. Said she was scared. Said she thought someone had broken into her apartment. Nothing stolen, just rearranged. That was me. I'd moved a single-frame photo on her bookshelf 1 inch to the left. Just enough to notice. Just enough to mess with her mind. She asked if I could stay with her that night. I just need you here, she said, her voice small. I said I had a store emergency. Hung up. Then I sent her another anonymous message. You think he'll protect you? He's already gone. The next day, she drove to David's office. I watched from across the street. She stood in front of the door for 10 minutes before walking away. They hadn't spoken in days. She tried calling him that night from our bedroom. I listened from the hallway. He didn't pick up. And just like that, the affair that once lit up her life was flickering out like a dying bulb. But she wasn't running back to me, not really. She was just lost. Cornered. A rat in a maze, looking for a way out. That's when I gave her one. A false hope. I left a note on her car windshield. He told me everything. I can make it stop. But I need something in return. No name. Just a number. She texted it the next morning. Who are you? I didn't answer for hours. Then I replied with, proof. Of what you did. Of what he's done. Deliver it to the drop point. Then we talk. I gave her the address of an old post office box I rented years ago for hardware supply shipments. And she bit. The next day, there was a package waiting. Inside, a flash drive. Photos of her and David. Hotel receipts. Copies of messages she'd printed out. Desperation in digital form. She thought she was paying someone off. But all she'd done was hand me the matches to burn her entire world down. That night I made dinner. Steaks. Baked potatoes. A little wine. Carla came downstairs in that blue sweater she always wore when she needed comfort. I poured her a glass. She looked at me, eyes red. Mark, do you think people can come back from anything? I tilted my head. What do you mean? She swallowed. I've made mistakes. Big ones. But I keep thinking maybe if I was just honest. I leaned back in my chair. Honest? Now she wanted honesty? I smiled. Everyone makes mistakes. But not everyone pays for them. She froze at that. I watched her stare at me for a full 10 seconds. Like something about what I said reached her. But then she blinked it away. Changed the subject. Talked about the dog park. Like that moment hadn't just happened. But I'd seen it. The first flicker of doubt. She was starting to wonder. Good. Let her wonder. Let her tremble. Because the next phase? That was the reckoning. I spent the next 2 days crafting a story. One that couldn't be traced to me, but would reach everyone in their orbit. I created a blog. Fake name. Fake persona. A woman pretending to be David's other girlfriend. Angry. Scorned. Vindictive. I posted everything Carla had handed me. Photos. Receipts. Snippets of the texts. I blurred out faces, but just barely. Just enough for the people who knew them to connect the dots. The blog went live on a Monday morning. By lunch, it had 600 views. By Wednesday, local gossip pages were quoting it. By Friday, the school board was holding an emergency meeting about inappropriate conduct allegations. Carla was told not to return to the classroom until further notice. David? Gone. Rumor said he'd left the state. I'd uprooted their lives, leveled their reputations, and cut every exit they had left. But I wasn't finished. I didn't want them to just suffer. I wanted them to confess. And I knew just how to get it. I always believe the worst kind of liar is the one who lies to themselves. And Carla, she'd built an entire world out of lies. Lies about her life, her job, her love. And somewhere along the way, she started believing them. But I was about to give her one final gift. A mirror. And show her exactly who she'd become. The house was quieter now. Days bled into each other. Carla stayed home more, barely spoke, barely ate. She paced the living room like a ghost, jumping at knocks on the door, flinching at every phone call. Every night, she checked the locks. Twice. I offered her tea. Said I'd support her through whatever she was going through. She called me a good man. I nearly choked on the irony. She still didn't know it was me. Still hadn't pieced it all together. She thought her world was crumbling under the weight of bad luck and coincidence. But I wanted her to know. I needed her to see me, not as the quiet husband in the background, but as the executioner standing in plain sight. So I set the trap. It started with a simple envelope, hand-delivered to her apartment mailbox. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Typed. No names. No sender. Tell the truth before someone else does. I knew exactly how she'd take it. A threat. A final warning. And in her unraveling mind, she wouldn't go to the police. She'd come to me. She did. That night, she sat at the edge of the bed, hands trembling, and said, "Mark, I think someone's trying to ruin my life." I stared at her. Just stared. And she broke. "I was seeing someone," she said, barely above a whisper. "It was a mistake. I was stupid. It meant nothing." It meant nothing. She looked at me like I was supposed to comfort her. Like I was supposed to forgive her. She still didn't get it. So I asked, "How long?" Her lip quivered. "About a year." Lie. I already knew it was closer to 3. I didn't call her out. Not yet. I asked, "Do you love him?" "No," she said. "Not anymore. Not since everything started happening. I ended it." Another lie. She didn't end it. I ended it. I watched her face, watched her scramble for pieces of a story that no longer held shape. She wanted me to forgive her, to absorb her shame, to be the rock she could lean on while the rest of her world collapsed. But I wasn't her rock. I was the wrecking ball. 2 days later, I left a flash drive on the kitchen table. She found it while I was at work. I knew she would. She plugged it in, watched the videos I collected. The hotel parking lot, the voice recordings, the phone calls, and the footage from the night she sat in that quarry alone, trembling, while I filmed her from a distance. I didn't label the files. I didn't have to. When I got home, she was waiting in the living room. Pale. Still. The drive clutched in her hand like a live wire. "You knew," she whispered. I nodded. Her voice cracked. "You did all this?" Still, I said nothing. "What kind of person does this?" Now she wanted to make me the monster. Like everything I'd done had no cause. Like her betrayal had somehow existed in a vacuum. I looked her dead in the eyes. "You broke something in me, Carla. And I fixed it the only way I know how." Silence fell between us like a dropped axe. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. I walked past her, sat down in my chair, turned on the TV. It wasn't about the fight. There was no yelling, no screaming, no storming out. That was the worst part for her, I think. There was no catharsis. Just silence. The next morning, she was gone. She didn't leave a note. Didn't pack much. Just disappeared. I watched her drive off from my window before dawn, 2 suitcases in the back seat. She didn't look back. I didn't follow. Didn't need to. She wasn't running from me anymore. She was running from herself. A week passed. Then another. Then I got a letter. From David. Typed. Formal. Like a man who'd finally been crushed enough to stop pretending. He didn't apologize, not directly. But he said he was stepping away from law indefinitely. Said he'd lost sight of who he was. Said he hoped I could find peace. Peace? There's no peace in betrayal. Only ash. Only echoes. But still, I folded the letter, set it on fire in the sink, and watched it burn. The store's been quiet lately. Fewer customers. A new cashier just started, young guy, polite. He asked if I had a family. I smiled. Nope. Not anymore. Carla's name is still on the mortgage. But the house is mine now. And every night, I sit by the window, listening to the wind move through the trees, wondering if she tells people about me. About how everything slipped away. I hope she does. I hope she tells them I was dull, predictable, ordinary. Because by the time she realized who I really was, it was already too late.